Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think it's brilliant that what the governing body of the game is trying to do in this part of the world, and I stress that in this part of the world, is speed the game up and get rid of a lot of the tedious time wasting that happens in the game at the moment. So, to give you listeners out there a bit of a picture of how they're going to go about doing that, first of all, they're going to be a lot more stringent on time taken around goal kicks. You're going to only be allowed that 60 seconds. Equally, scrum being set and lineouts is around the 30-second mark. It's always been the case, but it's not really been policed. So now they're going to make sure that there isn't the delays. There's no huddles allowed before lineouts where teams, piss around in that area and then sort of wander their way in, and then it's another 30 seconds before the ball goes in. We all know what the scrums have been like in terms of getting set. It seems to be taking at least a minute. So they're very much wanting to try and take away that wasted time in that regard. What do you think about that? I think it's a good idea. It's almost, when I was being told about it, I was thinking, God, who does that? And I was trying to sort of scratching my head thinking, what sport is it? And then I thought, I know what it is. It's NFL.
Yeah.
When the offensive team comes on, they've got a shot clock counting down to get their play in, haven't they? So it's not a bad thing to have. Maybe eventually we will, with TV, hopefully have when a ball does get knocked on and there's a scrum set, there's a shot clock that comes up, and if the attacking team doesn't get the ball in time, they get free kicked. So quite a cool innovation. But do you think them policing that will help take away from that time wasting?
Yeah, I think it's going to have to, so long as the referees are consistent with it, right? They use common sense as well. I mean, I know that often you'll have a prop go down with a tight calf to buy some time, but they can't be buying into that. We've talked about that as well. So I think it's a good move. I think it's a really good move actually to speed the game up. And I guess the other thing, I was talking to Ross Carl from Sky Sport about this because he does a lot of the rugby programming there. Is how it might affect your job, Marshy. All of a sudden, you don't have 2 minutes to fill. You've actually got game to talk about, and you're not just trying to fill where these guys muck around.
Yeah, that's right. And equally, I guess it maybe produces a better product for us. Well and truly what we want is we want our viewers engaged, and we don't want them wandering away because there's a knock on and they know that they can come back in 4 minutes and probably nothing's happened. So
yeah, exactly.
The fact that now if you get up, you've got to get to that beer fridge pretty quick, get the top off and sit back down because 30 seconds later the ball's going to be coming out of the back of the scrum, I think is great. Just progressing on to a couple of the other most significant changes. I think this is a good innovation. Nines can now no longer go past the middle of the scrum, so they cannot go and attack the opposition 9 or the number 8 at the base. They have to stay at the midway point of the scrum, and they're not able to go around the other side. If people think, they can jump around the other side to midway.
What about, Marshy, on that? How do you envisage that being policed? Imagine that you're the defensive halfback, if you like, right? And your scrum is on top of the team who've got the feed, and they're pushing that team back. You can no longer then go and fetch the ball off the other halfback.
No, you can't. And obviously that's where there's a lot of disruption that does happen. But equally, when you are that attacking team and you've got a bit of a vulnerable scrum, the number 8 is very limited in being able to do something about it if it's at his feet and they're backpedaling, simply because he has to be accurate because that opposition 9 is right on him. And because of that, we see lots of turnovers in that area. Now the number 8 can just disengage as long as he can get his hands on the ball, and we can just get the game flowing rather than it being disrupted at source. It also, in my mind, and this is just thinking from a halfback perspective, what it does is enable that 8-9 attack to really flourish. Loose forward attack as well, bringing your 6 and your 7 into a back row move. It's really hard to do when you've got a halfback sweating all over the number 8, and if the scrum slightly turns or whatever, it compromises the move because you can't go that way straight into the halfback. You'll interfere. Now he is, a metre and a half back. You can, regardless of where it turns or where you're going, you can still launch your back row attack. I certainly think it opens up the game to be able to be more creative in that area. It takes a lot of pressure off, and it encourages teams to use their number 8s more off the back of the scrum. But also, like I said, that back row attack out into the back line.
And the other one that, and kind of this is not the same, but is in a similar position, is the ball has to now be used within 5 seconds of a ruck being formed. I just wonder whether or not some of these rules would have come in if the South Africans were still part of Super Rugby, mate. Because I mean, if they don't have half an hour to figure out where they're going to box kick, I don't know what they do.
Yeah, well, that. I think what you've actually alluded to is probably the most poignant point in that equation is the amount of time that it is now taking a halfback to slowly produce players in front of him that shield him from getting charged down, at the same time then raking tediously the ball back with his foot to the back of the ruck to then execute a box kick. That literally soaks up so much time. Now they are literally going to have to, when they're box kicking, make sure that it's off a really good ruck, that the ball is available and free. Otherwise, you'll get penalised because you're taking too long. So I think it's a good innovation. It has become really, predictable and very obvious when a nine's going to kick, and you can see it happening and see him fluffing around with the ball. So I think that's good. But Riccardo, probably the biggest law change in terms of A, speeding up the game, but maybe B, taking a little bit of pressure off the referees, is the new yellow card review. So to give people an idea of what that's about is now, unless there is an act of thuggery, and when I use the word thuggery, I use it with a smile on my face, but anyway, which means like a blatant punch or coat hanger to the head, that the referee can then just say that is an absolute out-and-out breaking of the law and is an automatic red card. Anything else that falls into the possible red card category is going to be there's going to be an X sign from the referee go up, and there's going to be an off-field review. So all the referee will do is X sign, issue a yellow card to the offending player, who will then go and sit down, and within 8 minutes, the TMO, along with an assistant, will look at footage and decide whether or not the referee needs to upgrade his yellow card to a red. Now, what that does is the referee will look at the yellow card situation a couple of times on replay. He'll go, yep, that's a clear yellow card, just yellow card normal, game carries on. Or he'll go, yes, that's a clear yellow card, possible red. He will put up the X sign. He won't look at any more replays, so he won't look at 12 replays to try and find a red card. The TMO will be responsible for that. So what they are doing that for is to stop that referee, TMO, ARs all standing in the middle of the field watching countless replays. So again, this is all to stop that period of time of 5 minutes where they look at trying to decide if there's a red card or not. That responsibility now will be on the TMO 90% of the time, unless there's an obvious red card.
Yeah, and that's it's an interesting one for me, because I talked about this with Ross Carl during the week, or last week, I should say. And I said, well, does this mean the same thing? Like if a referee spots something and gives a straight red, the TMO then have 8 minutes to look and to see and make sure it is a straight red and not a yellow?
Yeah, there's going to be, as you rightly say, a lot of ambiguity in it, and possibly a little bit of confusion as well, because technically you would feel sometimes that a red card shouldn't have been issued. The referee has slightly not seen the right angle, or has got his decision wrong. Can they downgrade it? No, basically is the answer to that. What they are saying is, we want to protect our referees to a degree from having to look at a big screen under pressure, under the spotlight, with the crowd booing because it's taking so long, to let people with the technology right in front of them make that decision for them. Now, this is a work in progress, and I get it. There will still be some issues with it and some teething problems initially, I'd imagine, but it's a trial to see whether or not that this can effectively make things a lot clearer, and they can make for better decisions between red and yellow. So what I'm basically saying when I say no is, mate, I would be very, very surprised if a referee in the entire Super Rugby season, because he has this facility, goes to his pocket and issues a red card. It would have to be a blatant punch right in front of the referee, or I think even those ones at the rucks, Riccardo, where there's been a leading shoulder and it looks like contact to around the head area, I think they'll still only yellow card that and let the TMO decide whether or not, with the footage he can see, if it warrants a red. I think it'll always be a yellow.
Yeah, it's interesting. I really like these changes. I just hope that World Rugby gives them an opportunity at some point. Probably won't be this World Cup, I wouldn't imagine.
Will you bet your house on it? World Rugby sort of falling in line with what the Southern Hemisphere think and want to speed the game up?
Not a chance.